What's up, everybody? I'm Faraz from Upper Hand Fantasy. We're gonna go over some dynasty dilemmas in this video. Some of these guys might be nearing an age where you're like, do I sell? Do I keep? How many years of production does this guy have? Some of these guys are brand new to the scene and you're trying to figure out, like, is this guy legit? And you know, we wanna go through all these players to try to figure out, hey, like, how should we handle these players moving forward? The first guy I want to talk about, Amon-Ra St. This guy, he had an absolutely ridiculous finish to last season. Specifically those last 6 games of the season. He had at least 8 catches in each of those games, had at least 10 targets in each of those games, 93.5 receiving yards average over those 6 games, caught a touchdown in 5 of those 6 games. I mean, and then the dude went on to win People Fantasy Championships. So he's in the heart of many, no matter what. But how should we view him moving forward? I think Amon-Ra St. has established the fact that he can be a very good player and a very productive player when he gets the opportunity. Now the question is, will he demand targets when there are other capable weapons around him? Just a reminder that he did all this without TJ Hawkinson, without DeAndre Swift. Those two guys combined for 41% of the target share, you know, before they got hurt. Now, I think he's still going to be good. I don't think this was a fluke by any means, but I'm not gonna be drafting him like a wide receiver 2 or anything like that next season in redraft, okay? Now, in dynasty circles, right, he could be ranked as a wide receiver 1 in dynasty, a high-end wide receiver 2. And I would personally, if I have Amon-Ra St. listen, I'm fielding offers no matter what. Whenever anybody's value is that high, I'm gonna field offers, I'm gonna see what I can get. Now, I don't think that his ceiling is in that wide receiver 1 spectrum. I don't. And if anybody in your dynasty league does, I'm definitely taking advantage of that. So you might be wondering, like, can he play on the outside potentially? Now, Matt Harmon from Reception Perception, he did a in-season rookie evaluation for a lot of these wide receivers, and Amon-Ra St. didn't do so well. I think the role that he's playing right now is what is benefiting him. It's a perfect storm, you know, with Hawkinson being out, with Swift being out. He was just able to perform at a big time level. The fact that he was able to do it with multiple QBs, you know, who aren't that good, let's be honest, you know, was a great sign as well. However, Matt Harmon's charting did show that, you know, he wasn't great against press, right? He wasn't great against man, one-on-one, that sort of thing. And until he shows those same skills on the outside, I do think that his ceiling is more of a wide receiver 2 than somewhere near that wide receiver 1 level. And if anyone in your league thinks that his ceiling can be a wide receiver 1, I would probably pounce on that. The next guy I want to talk about, Rashaad Penny, who also had a ridiculous end to his season. He started to get legit opportunity in week 14, and from that point on, he led the NFL in rushing. He was the #1 overall running back in fantasy points, in total fantasy points scored, but also in fantasy points per game for the rest of the season. He had a ridiculous 6.3 yards per carry, but he was also first in yards after contact per attempt among all running backs with 100+ carries this season. A lot of that had to do with his big playability. More than 50% of his rushing yards came on plays of 15 yards or more. Now, he's set to be a free agent. Will Seattle re-sign him after not picking up his 5th-year option? Honestly, I don't think so. But how should we look at Rashaad Penny moving forward at this point? It really depends on his landing spot. You know, if I have him right now, I'm not moving him, right? I kind of want to see where he lands. Now, he was barely used as a pass catcher in his NFL career. He'll probably be an early down back wherever he goes. He just turned 26 in February. Not bad, right? Especially considering the fact that he doesn't really have too much tread on his tires. But how dependable is he? Can we depend on him to stay healthy? And that's why I'm not really willing to plant a flag on Rashaad Penny. Can you sell him off of his huge finish, just like Amon-Ra St. Anytime guys are at their peak value, I'm gonna field offers. I'll be looking to sell. Does he have another great year and not get hurt? Does he have 2? I'm not sure. The answer to that question is yes. So as of right now, I'm definitely fielding offers. Right now, I'm looking at like a mid to low end RB3 type of value right now in Dynasty. There is a world where somebody's giving you a legit RB2 back for Rashaad Penny because they want that upside. Give me the RB2. Oh, by the way, guys, if you haven't hit the like button yet, I would really appreciate it. That would really help me out. So the next guy I want to talk about is Terry McLaurin. There's no doubt that he is capable of being a true #1 wide receiver, and he's shown that. Now, he is going to be 27 years old by the time the season starts. He had 2 1,000-yard seasons under his belt. He even had close to 1,000 yards his rookie year as well. But now going into his age 27 season, now are you hopeful that he gets a quarterback, that could elevate him to his potential elite status? Or are you taking advantage of the window and, maybe taking what you can get and potentially getting a serious haul back for him? Now, me personally, I think he is expendable.
What?
And the reason why is I just don't want to wait and see who that quarterback is going to be, right? I understand that most likely whoever he gets is going to be an upgrade. I get that. But I don't want to wait and see. I'm okay moving McLaurin right now, potentially adding on another piece or two, maybe a couple picks, for a younger wide receiver who has proven that he could get it done, maybe in a better situation. For example, T. Higgins. I would give up McLaurin in a 2nd round pick for T. Higgins right now. That kind of gives you a baseline of what I value him at. If you have Terry McLaurin, you're hopeful right now, but I want to turn that hope into legitimacy. I want to turn that hope into getting a wide receiver who's younger, potentially better, has a higher ceiling. Someone like T. Higgins can fit the bill. All right, guys, I recorded this video before Carson Wentz got traded. If you haven't heard, Carson Wentz got traded from the Colts to Washington in a somewhat ridiculous deal. Washington got fleeced in this deal. They sent over 2 third-round picks, one of them potentially becoming a 2nd-round pick, depending on Carson Wentz's playing time. And they're also eating up the entire Carson Wentz contract. I think it's like 28 million, something like that. Crazy. Anyway, I'm glad McLaurin got someone who can make him viable as a solid wide receiver 2 this year. I think he's definitely going to be more consistent than he was with Taylor Heinicke. We just saw Carson Wentz being able to sustain Michael Pittman as a solid wide receiver 2 all year long last year, 26% target share, very solid season. McLaurin was already being drafted around the wide receiver 17 range in underdog best ball drafts, and I think that's about right. That's about the 3-4 turn in redraft. Now, I think McLaurin is a better player than Michael Pittman, but I don't think he's going to be able to hit that wide receiver 1 ceiling that I think he has with Carson Wentz. Now, if I have a win now team in Dynasty and he's my wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and I'm trying to win this year, I'm going to hold. If I have a team that, if I'm being honest, I might not be able to contend with the top teams in my league, I might use this Carson Wentz news as a little bit of leverage to get even more for McLaurin right now. You can get a haul for Terry right now. McLaurin has proved that he can be a team's wide receiver 1, but how long are we going to wait until we see that ceiling? Is he going to turn into an Allen Robinson type player where his potential hasn't been reached and honestly might not be reached for the entirety of his career? McLaurin is going to spend his age 27 season with Carson Wentz, and then in 2023, he might be in another QB needy situation. Now, I want to know in the comments, are you buying, selling, or holding Terry McLaurin in Dynasty right now? Next on my list, AJ Brown. Very tough year for AJ Brown. I had high hopes coming into this year, with Julio Jones added, that offense potentially getting better, potentially moving towards a less run-heavy offense, right? Given the fact that they have 2 studs, or we thought they would have 2 studs at wide receiver going into last season. With all the injuries this year for AJ Brown, kind of has him in question for a lot of people. Like, what do I do with him? Is he a legit Dynasty asset? Is he a high-end Dynasty asset? And he's obviously shown those boom games even this season, right? 8 catches for 133 yards and a touchdown, 10 catches for 155 yards and a touchdown, 11 catches for 145 yards and a touchdown. He's obviously oozing.
Pause.
With big play potential, league and week winning potential. Like, if I compare AJ Brown to Terry McLaurin, for me, there's no comparison. Weekly upside, season-long upside, Dynasty career-long upside, that's AJ Brown hands down. Like, I'm personally willing to buy AJ Brown right now, given the fact that he's come off a season where people were thinking about benching him. I would never bench him, right? Embrace the volatility. He'll be 25 in June, so going into the season, he's only going to be 25. He's going to be 1 year removed from those 2 knee surgeries that he had the previous offseason. And I just think he's going to have some massive, massive seasons in him coming up. He was 6th among all wide receivers in yards per route run among wide receivers with at least 100 targets. This past year, the year that he wasn't that great, 6th in yards per route run. The year before, 2nd in yards per route run. The year before that, 5th in yards per route run, and that was his rookie year. I'm holding and I'm buying AJ Brown. Now, if you have AJ Brown, what are you doing with him? I want to know in the comments. Okay, next on the list, Cordarrelle Patterson. Nobody saw this coming from Cordarrelle Patterson last year. So like, all right, what do I do with him? Now he's set to be an unrestricted free agent, right? But do we really want to see him anywhere outside of Atlanta for fantasy purposes? He's been on 5 teams so far. Nobody could figure out how to use him, correctly, or at least use him enough for fantasy production until he got to Atlanta. Even if he stays in Atlanta, the chances that the Falcons add another running back to that rotation is pretty high, right? Because they really didn't know what to do outside of Cordarrelle Patterson last year. They used Mike Davis, but I don't think this is going to do for them, right? You think about a coach who had Derrick Henry the year before, right, in Tennessee, and now like going into this year, I think he's going to address that position for sure. And then you think like, even if they use him with another back, he complements another back that they bring in, is he really going to score another 11 touchdowns? He was pretty efficient. Now, Patterson is 31 years old, okay? Like, this might be straightforward for a lot of people. It's pretty straightforward for me. If I can, I'm looking at a team who's potentially competing. I'm trying to package him up, with another legit asset and, maybe get some picks back, maybe get another player back, a younger player who might not have broken out yet, something like that, somebody with high promise. But I don't want to hold on to Cordarrelle Patterson right now. I want to take advantage of the season that he just had. All right, so the next guy I want to talk about is DJ Moore. Only 25 years old going into this season. He's been pretty productive given the fact that he's had some quarterback troubles lately, and that's an understatement. He does have plenty of years left. He has time to get a quarterback, right? This is not like the Terry McLaurin situation where he's already 27. That Carolina QB situation is a bit of a mess right now, but they are trying to right that mess. Hopefully they can get it done. Who knows? They've been making some questionable decisions, but DJ Moore is a young wide receiver who has a ton of production already under his belt in the NFL. Moore is just one of those players that if I have him, I'm holding tight. I'm trying to acquire him. He's just somebody that I think has a lot more potential left. He had 3 1,000-yard seasons, and he did that from the ages of 22 to 24. He's hardly missed games. He had terrible quarterback play last year, but he still saw 163 targets, which was 6th in the NFL. Remember, targets are earned, and he's been earning them over the past few years. Now, his first 4 years of his career, he was above 1.8 yards per route run every single year. He was 12th in 2019 and 8th in 2020 in yards per route run among all wide receivers with at least 100 targets. And last year, he was 17th, but he still maintained 1.86 yards per route run, which is pretty healthy. The quarterback troubles definitely played a factor into that. I'm viewing him as a wide receiver 2, like a solid wide receiver 2 in Dynasty right now. And he's somebody who has that wide receiver 1 ceiling, that wide receiver 1 potential if his quarterback troubles are solved. I'm even willing to buy DJ Moore with a first round rookie pick from this year. Maybe not an early one. I don't know if I want to miss out on Drake London or Treylon Burks, but we'll see. I'm not 100% decided on that. But to be honest with you, even if you give up your 101 this year, you're getting somebody who has a lot of years left, right? Who's only a couple years older than these wide receivers coming out right now, right? And DJ Moore already has shown that production. So sometimes you have to prioritize these wide receivers who are already getting it done at a high level in the NFL. Even if you had to add on to a mid-first this year, plus another lower tier player, go for it. Do some of these guys coming out have higher upside? Potentially, yes. But if you go for a safe option who has a ton of upside, you might want to stick with DJ Moore. The next guy I want to talk about, Derrick Henry. You don't want to be a year or two late on Derrick Henry, and I get it. People are going to pick Derrick Henry near the top of the first round, if not the 101, 102, 103. I get it. He's been dominating, right? Last year, he was getting 30 carries a game, and that could be a problem, okay? Me personally, I'm moving on. I don't want to be a year too late. You basically compare what his value is right now. Imagine what you can get for Derrick Henry and compare that to 0. Because that's what these running back cliffs are like. And I'm not saying that this happens this year, but I'm making sure that I'm getting value for Derrick Henry. I don't want to be left with somebody that I can't sell. Now, if I'm a win now team, sure, I get it, keep him. But I'd rather trade him for someone like Christian McCaffrey, who's entering his age 26 season. Same thing with Saquon. You're probably asking, dude, you want me to trade for these injury-prone running backs? No, I want you to trade for running backs who are still young, who have elite ceilings. And I'm gonna get to Saquon in a minute. But Christian McCaffrey, after an ankle injury, after a hamstring injury, you want to fade him because of that? The dude had the highest scoring fantasy season ever. And then the 3rd highest fantasy scoring season ever in points per game. I'm not fading that. I digress. Anyway, Derrick Henry just turned 28 in January. Running backs are usually past their prime after the age of 27. He also almost has 1,500 career carries, which is kind of the threshold that we see with these running backs dropping off. And that's according to a study, an article done by Ted Seth from Pro Football Focus. We saw it happen with Zeke, and maybe you think that Derrick Henry is that anomaly. But do you want to bet on that and not get value while you can? I'm taking the value. Were there any other signs of slowing down for Derrick Henry? He looked good last year, but one thing I did notice is that his breakaway rate has decreased over the past 2 seasons. You know, those runs that he breaks for more than 15 yards? In 2019, 33.5% of his total rushing yards were coming off those big gains. That came down to 31.2% in 2020, and then it came down even further to 26.4% in 2021. Just for some context, Sony Michel had the same amount of 15-plus yard carries as Derrick Henry did with a similar amount of attempts. Zeke only had 3 less 15 or more yard runs than Derrick Henry, similar amount of work. Listen, Derrick Henry was averaging 30 touches per game last year. They're going to run him into the ground. I'm probably not going to be spending a high pick on him in redraft leagues, and I don't want him on my roster, you know, when he eventually does break down. Can he be the anomaly? Sure, he can, and there are anomalies all the time. But I just don't want to bet on it, right? That's all. Okay, so the last guy I want to talk about is Saquon Barkley. And I know a lot of people are looking to sell Saquon because they think they can get some value out of him right now, and they want to get value before his value goes all the way down to 0. But honestly, I think you can hold him. I think you can buy him, and I think if you want to sell him, you can sell him at a much higher price than he's priced at right now. Now, I have a question for all of you. How did you think the season after an ACL tear was going to go for Saquon Barkley? A lot of people thought he was going to pull in Adrian Peterson and have a monster year, right? So there was 2 buckets, right? Either full avoid or, hey man, he's going to absolutely kill it this year. He's an anomaly. Well, the people who bet on him being an anomaly, they didn't win that, right? And the people who didn't bet on him said, I told you so. And I think the answer really lies somewhere in the middle, right? Because the fact that he's going into this season, 2 years removed from his ACL, it's a completely different situation. Now, what was Saquon doing this time last year? He was rehabbing all the way up until the season. He wasn't even ready for the start of the year. When he came into last season, one leg was noticeably bigger than the other. I ain't no doctor, I'm not a physical therapist, but I have a feeling that if one leg is bigger than the other and imbalance is there, that could lead to injuries. I don't think it takes a doctor or a physical therapist to know that. Saquon now has a full offseason to get back to his regular self, right? Last year, he was just rehabbing to get good enough to play. Now he can strengthen and he can work on him getting better, back to his elite level, potentially better than he used to be. Saquon was one of the best running back prospects we've ever seen. He came into the league and had one of the best rookie years we've ever seen. And then in 2019, he was 6th in PPR fantasy points per game, and that was with him having a high ankle sprain early in the year. And then in 2020, he tears his ACL. And then in 2021, you know, what I think is the remnants of that ACL, you know, he wasn't right because of that, and he had a terrible year. But Saquon needs an offensive line. Look what Najee Harris just did. The overall RB3 in his rookie year. Someone who's not close to being the talent that Saquon Barkley is, okay? You don't need an offensive line to be productive and to be a high-end running back for fantasy purposes as long as you're catching passes. But the Giants' offense, Pittsburgh ranked 21st in points per game this past year, 23rd in yards per game this year. Jacksonville ranked 27th in yards per game in 2020, yet James Robinson had a monster year. Why? Because he was an every down back and he was extremely involved in the pass game. I'm holding, I'm buying, and with Brian Dable coming in from Buffalo, things are only gonna get better. All right, guys, that's all I got for the Dynasty Dilemmas. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, that would help me out a lot. Please like the video, and I'll see you next time. See ya.